The French, the old colonial power, have been here for more than 100 years. But Djibouti's strategic position has encouraged the arrival of the real superpower. Welcome to America's main military outpost in Africa, Camp Lemonnier, the first of a series of US bases planned for the continent. Master Sergeant Stanley Parker showed me around.
When you were told you were being deployed to Djibouti, had you heard of the place? I mean...
Never heard of Djibouti, ever. Actually, I had to go to the map and find where it was. And when I told family and friends that I was being deployed to Djibouti, they actually said, "You kidding me? Djibouti?" You know? And I was like, I was taken back. I was like, it became the running joke. He's going to Djibouti.
This base, home to several thousand troops, feels like a piece of America.
Look at the size of this.
Almost everything here has been imported from the States. Even the food in the Bob Hope galley.
What have you got tonight?
Tonight is seafood night.
Right.
So, you know, you'll get the shrimp scampi, steamed shrimp. You'll have lobster tails on the menu.
You don't have lobster tails.
We do
here.
have a steak night. Last night we had a roast pig. They had a whole roast pig out here, head and all. It's almost like being on a cruise ship, you know?
But the base is actually a new home for AFRICOM, a controversial new US military command focused on Africa. Brigadier General Roosevelt Barfield says the job of AFRICOM is to win over the hearts and minds of Africans, particularly Muslims.
We do a number of civil affairs activities where we go out and we assist with building schools, renovating schools, building wells, but we have no design to do any type of military combat operations.
And I'm just noticing on the front of the helicopters here, the 0901, the September the 11th attacks, never forget. Do you see your presence here as being an extension of the war on terror that started after 9/11?
Of course it is, absolutely. But we're on the end that prevent those types of conditions that permeates and makes people want to do extreme and just bad things. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
The Americans say they have come in peace to help stabilize Africa, but large areas of this base are off limits, and US Special Forces are thought to have launched raids against Al-Qaeda in neighboring Somalia.
Are we right to assume that you're running some sort of special operations from here as well?
Not this particular task force. We don't do those things.
So you're the friendly face of the...
We are the friendly face. History is in the making here, and the world is watching.
All right, well, starting off this hour, a new report by the Washington Post is shining a light on the U.S. drone program in North Africa. Under a cloud of secrecy, the U.S. military and the CIA are expanding one base in particular. Right here. This is Camp Lemonnier, a 500-acre U.S. military base in the capital of the impoverished former French colony, Djibouti. It started off as a temporary staging area for Marines trying to get a foothold on the volatile region back in 2002, but has quickly become a major asset in the U.S. counterterrorism operations abroad. And, as you can see, this camp's location is part of its lure. Djibouti shares a sea border with Yemen and a land border with Somalia. Now, just to quickly go over some of the numbers for you, 3,200 U.S. troops, contractors, and civilians work there. 300 of them are dedicated solely to the drone program. The U.S. pays Djibouti $38 million a year to lease the camp and is in the midst of a $1.4 billion expansion. And this country certainly isn't the only one seeing an influx of unmanned aircrafts in its skies. For more on this changing face of war, I'm joined by Scott Horton, contributing editor at Harper's Magazine. Hi there, Scott. Let's start, first of all, by talking about the strategic importance of Djibouti and what differences there are between the people that are operating drones sitting in Camp Lemonnier versus the ones that are in the air-conditioned bases in Nevada or Virginia.
Well, I think you did a very good job in the lead-in presenting the strategic element here. So, in fact, if you look at a recent briefing that's been provided by senior figures in the intelligence community, we see something of a pivot going on away from Iraq and Afghanistan to North Africa broadly as an area of concern, an arc that runs from Mali all the way across the Sahara-Sahel region and winds up in the Horn of Africa in Somalia. These are areas of focused attention. And of course, just across the Red Sea there in that narrow strait is Yemen, which may be emerging after Pakistan as the next major focal area for drone activities. And we know that the drones, in fact, are operated from facilities, largely from facilities back in the United States. In fact, there's an Air Force base in Nevada where a lot of this is going on. At Langley, we see a lot of direction. But you have to maintain and operate them locally. So that's the reason for the bases and the contractors and the uniformed professionals on the ground there in Djibouti who will do this maintenance and guidance action. They may also step in and handle operations.
It's a little piece of America in the middle of the Yorkshire Dales. It might look like some kind of theme park, but it's actually a spy base and part of the early warning system for the ever-expanding US missile defence shield.
It's a part of this huge kind of organism that's gripping the world, and it surfaces in different places like Menwith Hill, which is connected together and is the American military.
There's been a base in Menwith Hill since the 1960s, growing all the time, until the site now comprises 33 of those golf ball-like structures. Inside each one, a satellite dish, which collects information from US satellites, but also intercepts the communications of other countries. That information is then fed back to the US and used in what they call intelligence-led warfare, which includes special operations and drone attacks. To keep up with new forms of warfare, billions of dollars have been invested in Menwith Hill over the last 10 years. It's enabled the base to remain a vital component of the global US surveillance network. Menwith watcher Dr. Steve Schofield reckons the inner workings of around 100 countries are closely monitored here, something he dubs an unprecedented level of intervention.
The UK is providing a facility here that's involved in drone attacks that we know from independent assessments are killing and injuring thousands of civilians now. These are acts of war, and normally when we have acts of war, Parliament should normally inform people that we're involved in those, and we're not being informed. We're kept entirely in the dark about them.
This isn't news to locals. They've been coming up here to protest weekly for decades. But now their cause has drawn the attention of a global movement, Occupy. Helen Alexander is from Occupy Leeds and sees a common cause in Menwith Hill.
Consider its implications on our individual civil liberties, the fact that they can listen to all of our phone calls, they can intercept our emails. There's whistleblower evidence, there's testimonials that will back up the claims that what goes on there is not only political espionage but commercial espionage.
It's a far cry from the land of the free rhetoric the US is famous for, and critics see Menwith Hill as a symbol of that hypocrisy and of Europe kowtowing to US power.
What we're seeing is the Americans developing a new form of imperialism. This isn't about protection of democracy. If you look at the pattern of bases, the base investments that's been done by the United States over the past 20 years, it's all about ensuring that they have access to oil and other vital non-renewable resources in Africa, in the Persian Gulf, and we've got to challenge that. We really have to start challenging it before it's too late, because the next stage is probably the attack on Iran.
With the US's expansion plans for the ballistic missile defence shield up to 2025, and with Menwith Hill already part of the early warning system, this poking of America's nose into other people's backyards is stoking fears it could be the trigger to a new arms race. Laura Smith, RT, Menwith Hill, Yorkshire.